In this section, we're going to take a look at how you can implement StackMob along with Backbone.js using the Requirejs library to break your project up into modules. Now, I want to start by just looking back at our original example app when we had everything inside of one index.html file and we had StackMob along with all of our Backbone code and JavaScript libraries all inside of one file, just so we can sort of do a comparison as we're breaking this apart. So at the top of our index page here, we've got our CSS as well as our script tags defined. We've got our jQuery library, and then we've got the StackMob bundled library as well. Now what we're doing here is we've actually compiled for you and minified for you the Backbone, underscore, and StackMob libraries all into one. But as you saw in the previous section when we talked about Require.js, we actually like to load all of our libraries individually. And so we actually don't want to use the bundled version of StackMob. We just want to use the regular version. So you can actually get that pretty easily just by grabbing the URL and opening up a new browser window. And if we take off the minified part and the bundled part and we just hit load, we actually get the 8.1 version of the StackMob library unminified. And at this point in our browser, we could just do a file save as, and we could actually save this locally. Now, I've actually gone ahead and done that for you inside of the StackMob Require.js folder that I've added to the hands-on directory for you. But I just wanted to show you how you could do it on your own if you needed to. So let's go back here. So we need to break those libraries apart. Okay. There's also one other thing we need to think about, and that's the fact that at the top we are initializing the StackMob object along with our API key and the name of our app and which API version we're running. So we need to put that somewhere in its own separate JavaScript file so that we can load it dynamically as well. And so what I've done is I've created inside of this Require.js -StackMob folder, I've created one additional JavaScript file called StackMob.init .js. And inside of there, I've defined that I need the StackMob library, and I pass that in as an option. And then I just initialize it with my different arguments, my different parameters here to initialize StackMob, and then I return an instance of StackMob. And this is really important because if you aren't passing in an initialized version of the StackMob library, you'll just be passing in the just vanilla library, and you haven't actually initialized it with your API key, and then it wouldn't work. You wouldn't be able to save your models and your collections the way we've done in our throughout this lesson. So I just wanted to show you that little bit, and now I want to go over to the main.js file because this is where we actually configure our application and what libraries we're going to be using. So a couple of changes here. We've defined the StackMob library here, and we're pointing to that 8.1 not minified, not bundled version of StackMob, and we're including all of the other libraries we need like jQuery and underscore and Backbone. I'm also pulling in my StackMob.init, and then down here beneath in our shims, I'm also defining the StackMob.init library and saying that it depends on all these other libraries, jQuery, underscore, Backbone, and StackMob. So that's pretty much the only extra piece that I had to do to get this version of the app up and running. And now what I need to do is a few other little tweaks here for my StackMob app running with Require.js. One is that when I use my collections, I need an instance of that initialized StackMob library. So what I do is I actually pass in StackMob.init here when I define the libraries that I need, and then I pass it in as the StackMob object, and then I can call StackMob.collection.extend, and then that's going to actually pass back an initialized wine collection for me. The only other place that I do this and pass in the StackMob.init library is when I declare my model. So again, I'm passing in StackMob.init, and I'm passing in an argument into my function called StackMob, and then I can call StackMob.model.extend, and that will initialize that instance of the StackMob model for me. And so that's pretty much all I need to do as far as my different collections and models that I'm instantiating with the StackMob library. The one other thing I want to look at is the routers, because I think this is a concept we need to make sure we really focus on, and that's when we're dealing with collections. We don't want to keep reinitializing our collection. We only want to create one instance of a collection in our router if we're using routers with Backbone, and we want to pass that collection around from one view to the next, and using the router is a very efficient way of doing that. And so what I've done here is I've actually passing in my wine collection here, and then down in my initialize statement I'm actually creating a new instance of my wine collection, and then I'm starting off with a fetch. So I'm doing wine collection.fetch, and I'm asynchronously, or actually I'm saying don't do it asynchronously, actually go and make sure we've got our collection before we continue executing. So I get my collection back, and then I can pass that into my router as an option for my collection. So I pass that in as collection, and I'm passing in my wine collection as an option, and then if we scroll up to the top in my app router initialize method, I can go and pass in those options and pull out that collection. And that's all you need to do to work with StackMob and Requirejs.